On a stormy summer night in 1856, in a small village surrounded by forests and quiet fields, lightning tore across the sky with a violence the villagers had never seen before. The thunder rolled like the earth was being split open, and in a modest house lit only by candles, a child took his first breath just as a bolt of lightning struck the ground outside. The midwife gasped. She said the storm was a bad omen, but Tesla's mother, calm and confident, whispered something different. She said, "No, he will be a child of light." From the very beginning, Nikola Tesla lived in a world the rest of us could barely imagine. By the time other children were learning to write their names, Tesla was seeing visions, flashes of light, shapes, systems, and machines that did not yet exist. He saw them clearly, almost like memories from a future he hadn't lived yet. He didn't need blueprints or sketches. He could build entire machines inside his mind, run them for days, adjust them, test them, all without touching a single tool. And only when the design felt perfect inside his imagination, he would create it in the real world, almost exactly as he had envisioned. People around him thought he was strange, too quiet, too intense, too alone. But there was something else about him, something the world wouldn't understand until much later. While other children wished for toys, Tesla wished for knowledge. While others dreamed of simple things, Tesla dreamed of harnessing the invisible forces of the universe. As he grew older, the world around him began to shift. Empires fell, nations changed, new inventions appeared. But none of them were enough for Tesla. He did not want to improve the world as it was. He wanted to rebuild it completely. And so, he set out on a journey that would take him from village roads to grand cities, and eventually across an ocean, to a place where dreams were supposed to come true, America. When he arrived in New York City in 1884, he carried only 4 cents in his pocket, a book of poetry, and a letter of recommendation. The city was loud, chaotic, crowded, and yet, somewhere inside that chaos, Tesla felt destiny calling. Tall buildings, noisy streets, flickering lamps, smokestacks. Everything around him whispered that this was the place where he would change the world. But change never comes easily, and in Tesla's case it came with enemies he never expected. One of those enemies was a man he admired before he ever met him, Thomas Edison. The world called him a genius, an inventor, the father of modern electricity. And yet, when Tesla walked into Edison's office, he didn't find the brilliance he imagined. He found a businessman, a man who believed electricity should be controlled, measured, and most importantly, sold. Tesla showed him ideas that seemed impossible, motors that ran themselves more efficiently than anything Edison had built, systems that could power entire cities without the need for expensive machinery, towers that could send energy through the air. Edison listened and rejected almost everything, not because Tesla was wrong, but because Tesla's ideas were dangerous to his business. Still, Tesla kept working, day after day, night after night, often hungry, often exhausted, sometimes working so intensely that he forgot to sleep or eat. And then, one day, something extraordinary happened. He created a motor unlike any the world had ever seen. Smooth, efficient, elegant. A machine that used the natural rhythm of electricity, the alternating current system. It was clean, powerful, limitless. And when Tesla demonstrated it in front of engineers and investors, they realized what they were witnessing: a revolution. But revolutions attract enemies. And soon a battle began, one the newspapers called the War of Currents. Edison versus Tesla, old power versus new power, Profit versus progress. Tesla did not fight with money or influence. He fought with ideas. He spoke calmly, confidently, explaining concepts the public barely understood. He warned that Edison's system was dangerous, wasteful, and temporary, and he promised that his own system, AC, would power the future. In the end, Tesla won. His system became the backbone of the modern world, the lights in our homes, the electricity in our cities, the machines in our factories. All of them trace their roots back to the mind of a man who once stood alone in the dark. And yet, despite this victory, Tesla himself never felt triumphant, because deep inside he was dreaming of something far greater, something even today we barely understand. He believed energy did not need wires. He believed the earth itself could carry power. He believed that if he could build one tower, just one, he could light up the entire world. No bills, no fuel, no pollution, no control by any government or corporation, just free power for everyone. But the world was not ready. Investors backed out, newspapers mocked him, rivals whispered that he had gone mad. And slowly, piece by piece, Tesla's dream began to collapse. Still, he kept working, even when the money stopped coming, even when friends disappeared, even when he ate only bread and milk for days because he couldn't afford anything else. In small hotel rooms, surrounded by notes and sketches, Tesla tried to finish the dream that had followed him his entire life. And then one day, the world simply moved on without him. He spent his final years alone, walking in the streets of New York, feeding pigeons, talking to them softly as if they were his last remaining companions. People called him strange, some called him crazy, but none of them truly understood what he had given us, or what he could have given, if only someone had believed in his vision. And so, tonight, as the world around you hums with electricity, as your screen glows with the light Tesla helped create, you will hear his story, the real story. Not the short version found in textbooks, not the myths or the exaggerations, but the journey of a man who tried to lift humanity into a new age, alone, the man born in a lightning storm, the man who dreamed of a world without darkness, the man who almost changed everything. This is the story of Nikola Tesla. The story of Nikola Tesla truly begins not with his inventions, not with the towers he dreamed of building, and not even with the mighty cities he hoped to electrify, but in the quiet fields and winding rivers of rural Smiljan, where the world was peaceful, slow, and lit mostly by candlelight. After the fierce storm that greeted his birth, life settled back into its usual rhythm. But for Tesla, nothing was ever ordinary. His earliest memories, he would later say, were made of sound and light. The whisper of the wind through the grass felt like messages. The shimmer of the sun on the water felt like codes. Even the sparks, when he combed his hair, seemed to speak to him. Where other children saw the ordinary, Tesla saw patterns, moving, shifting, rearranging themselves inside his mind. They were like visitors from a world within the world, a world only he could see. His family lived modestly. His father was a priest, strict, intellectual, expecting discipline. His mother, on the other hand, was creativity in human form. Though she never received formal education, she possessed an astonishing memory, able to recite hundreds of pages of poetry without error. More importantly, she was a maker, constantly sewing, knitting, crafting tools, fixing broken household items, reinventing them in small, clever ways. She used her hands the way Tesla would one day use his mind to give form to imagination. He watched her constantly, The way her fingers moved, the way her eyes brightened when an idea struck her, the way she created something from nothing. And though he would grow to be one of the greatest scientific minds of all time, he always said it was his mother, not any professor or engineer, who first taught him the art of invention. Life in the Tesla household wasn't easy. Money was tight and expectations were high. His father wanted him to become a priest as well, to carry on the family tradition. But Tesla wanted something different, something he could barely describe. He didn't want to follow. He wanted to discover. He didn't want to repeat old paths. He wanted to create new ones. And in the quiet nights, when the village slept and the moonlit fields were still, Tesla felt something calling him. A pull, like a current, drawing him toward a future that did not yet exist. As a child, he wasn't strong. He often fell ill, suffered fevers, and was easily exhausted. Several times he hovered between life and death, and yet, each time he recovered, he emerged sharper, keener, more aware. His mind raced in ways he couldn't turn off. Thoughts came in torrents, visions in flashes. Sometimes he saw images so clearly it frightened him. One evening, after a particularly bad fever, he told his mother about a strange dream, a column of lightning stretching from the ground into the sky, humming with a sound like the beating of wings. To him, it felt like a sign, like the storm the night he was born had followed him into his mind. His mother didn't dismiss it. She sat beside him, stroked his hair, and said, "You will understand it when the time comes. Your mind is open to things others cannot see." Those words stayed with him his entire life. As Tesla grew older, his imagination began turning into action. His first inventions were not grand machines, but simple toys and tools, water wheels made from scraps, rotating models powered by insects tied to small harnesses, mechanical devices built from household items. They were crude, childish things, but his mind was practicing, learning how to turn vision into reality. One of his earliest obsessions was the idea of perpetual motion, a machine that would work endlessly without stopping. He didn't know then it was considered scientifically impossible. He simply believed there must be a way. He would sit by streams for hours, watching water turn wheels, imagining ways to capture motion forever. His curiosity was endless. He read everything he could find: science, poetry, mathematics, stories of explorers and philosophers, but books were rare and libraries were far. So he developed a remarkable ability. He could read an entire page once and remember it perfectly for years. His mind was beginning to build the extraordinary memory structure that would later allow him to design machines in his head with astonishing accuracy. Yet his childhood wasn't only filled with wonder, it was also marked by pain that would shape his entire life. Tesla had an older brother, Dane, who was considered a prodigy, brilliant, charismatic, gifted in ways the entire village admired. Tesla idolized him. But one day, a tragic accident took his brother's life, and everything changed. Tesla was young, but old enough to feel the weight of loss, old enough to see the grief in his parents' eyes, old enough to understand that the world could take away what you loved most without warning. His father withdrew, becoming stricter, colder. His mother grew quieter, though she tried to hide her pain, and Tesla, caught between expectation and grief, retreated deeper into his imagination. The day his brother died, a door opened inside Tesla's mind, a door to loneliness, to drive, to obsession. Even later in life, he would say that he spent much of his childhood trying to fill the void left behind. But his mother understood him. more than anyone. She alone encouraged his strange fascinations. She built puzzles for him, gave him memory challenges, asked him to craft new tools for the household. She didn't praise blindly. She pushed him to think deeper, to see connections where others saw nothing. At night, when his father disapproved of his experiments, his mother would quietly bring him candles so he could continue working. She nurtured his curiosity because she recognized something in him, something she believed she had passed down. Tesla often said his mind was a gift from his mother. He meant it. As he approached adolescence, his thoughts became more sophisticated. He began imagining entire systems, machines powered without fuel, energy drawn from the natural world, even the possibility of controlling lightning itself. But the most important development was something he never truly explained: the formation of his internal visualization ability. Tesla began seeing inventions before they existed, not sketches, not ideas, but perfect, functioning machines. He could rotate them in 3 dimensions, zoom in on individual gears, change components, and test the entire system inside his mind. No paper, no prototypes, just a mental laboratory more precise than any physical workshop. He discovered this accidentally. One day, while recovering from another fever, he saw an image, a wheel spinning in front of him, perfectly clear. He blinked, and it remained. He moved his hand, and the wheel responded. It was like dreaming while awake, like imagination stepping into reality. At first, the visions overwhelmed him. They appeared uninvited, sometimes during conversations, sometimes in the middle of walking. But over time, he learned to control them, to call them intentionally. It was the beginning of his genius. His relationship with his father grew strained. His father insisted he follow the path of the priesthood. Tesla refused gently but firmly. He wanted science. He wanted invention. He wanted the mystery of the universe, not sermons, not tradition. Their argument reached a breaking point when Tesla fell gravely ill again. This time, doctors feared he wouldn't survive. For days, he lay weak and pale, fighting for breath. One evening, believing his son might not make it, his father finally broke. He held Tesla's hand and said, "If you recover, you can study anything you want. Engineering, science, whatever your heart desires." That promise became Tesla's new source of strength. He recovered, and from that moment, he belonged entirely to discovery. He threw himself into study with the intensity of someone who felt time slipping away. He read late into the night, solved complex equations for fun, absorbed physics and mathematics at a level far beyond his age. His teachers were astonished. Some even accused him of cheating because they couldn't believe a student could calculate so quickly in his head. Others feared for him, saying his mind was too active, that he worked himself too hard. They didn't understand that Tesla wasn't driven by ambition. He was driven by something else, something deeper: curiosity, an insatiable hunger to know why things worked the way they did. During these years, his bond with his mother grew even stronger. She encouraged him, challenged him, comforted him when he doubted himself. When he returned home from school, she would ask about his studies, about the problems he was solving, about the ideas forming inside his mind. "Your mind moves like water," she would say, "always flowing, always searching." Her faith in him became the foundation of his confidence. And though Tesla would later work with giants of industry, though he would electrify cities and build machines that defied belief, though he would stand before crowds who didn't understand him but admired him, He never forgot that his first mentor, his true inspiration, was a woman quietly creating inventions at a kitchen table. He carried her spirit into everything he built. By the time Tesla reached his late teens, the world around him felt too small. His mind had grown too large for the village, too restless for tradition. He wanted machines, laboratories, universities. He wanted to understand the forces of nature, not through stories or imagination, but through experimentation and creation. He wanted to step into the world he saw in his mind, and soon he would, because the next chapter of his life would take him out of his peaceful countryside and into cities filled with noise, ambition, and possibility, into universities where his teachers would be both amazed and frustrated by his intellect, into workshops where he would begin shaping the future of electricity. The lightning dream was beginning to form a path that would lead him far from home, a path that would transform him from a boy with visions into a man who would change the world. But before that transformation, Tesla would face one more test, one that would push him to the edge and shape his destiny forever. And that is where the story continues. The moment Tesla stepped out of his village and into the wider world, it was as if he had shed an old skin. The countryside that once felt limitless now seemed tiny in comparison to the ambitions rising inside him. He traveled across regions, passing through busy towns and echoing train stations, seeing machines and technologies he had never encountered before. Steam engines roared beside him, telegraph wires stretched across vast fields, factories hummed like gigantic metal beasts. For the first time in his life, he saw the world not as a quiet landscape, but as a living machine, and he wanted to understand every part of it. When Tesla entered engineering school, he arrived with the hunger of someone who had been waiting his entire life for this moment. Universities in the Austro-Hungarian Empire were rigorous, competitive, and filled with some of the brightest students in the region. But Tesla was different. He didn't just excel, he astonished. On his very first day, he buried himself in textbooks, reading with an intensity that shocked even the top scholars. Professors expected students to study a few hours each day. Tesla studied from dawn until late night, stopping only when exhaustion forced him to. But it wasn't work to him. It was fuel. He absorbed knowledge as if his mind were a vast empty room waiting to be filled with inventions. Mathematics, physics, mechanical engineering. Everything he touched sparked something bigger. He memorized entire textbooks after a single reading. He reproduced complex diagrams without error. He answered questions before professors finished asking them. Some classmates admired him. Others were intimidated. A few whispered rumors, calling him obsessive, unnatural, even frightening in his intensity. They weren't entirely wrong. Tesla's mind worked in ways no one around him truly understood. At night, when other students slept, he remained awake, pacing his room, imagining machines and devices that didn't exist yet. Sometimes he would freeze mid-step, lost in a mechanical vision so vivid it felt real. He would rotate engines in his mind, remove gears, change currents, adjust coils, testing everything without touching a single tool. To him, mental experiments were clearer than physical ones. One evening, while studying the principles of electrical generators, Tesla suddenly paused at his desk. His candle flickered, the room dimmed, and in the darkness his imagination lit up. He saw a machine turning inside his mind, perfect, smooth, balanced. A machine without friction, without interruption. A machine that worked not by sparks or mechanical commutators, but through the rotation of magnetic fields themselves, alternating current. The idea struck him with such force that he stood up abruptly. His heart raced. He paced the room, whispering to himself, drawing invisible diagrams with his fingers in the air. Not direct current, not a broken cycle, but a wave, he murmured, a wave that moves, returns, passes again. It was the earliest vision of AC power, a system that would one day light entire cities, power skyscrapers, transform industry, and shape the modern world. But at that moment, Tesla was just a young student with a strange dream. He tried explaining his idea to his professor the next day, but the professor laughed. A rotating magnetic field, the man scoffed. Impossible, a fantasy, like trying to build a wheel that spins without touching anything. The class laughed. Tesla did not. He sat quietly, keeping the vision alive inside his mind. Their laughter didn't matter. He'd seen something real, something that would one day change everything. But for now, he had no way to prove it. His academic life became a battlefield between his brilliance and his fragility. The more he learned, the deeper he went into his mental world. Days blurred into nights. He pushed himself far beyond normal limits. He slept only 2 or 3 hours. He ate irregularly. He stopped socializing. His life narrowed into a single point of obsession, understanding the forces that governed electricity. He wanted to control them, to tame them, to shape them. But brilliance, when pushed too far, comes with a price. Tesla's health began to crack. He experienced sudden bouts of weakness, trembling hands, and moments where sounds became unbearably loud. His senses sharpened so intensely that an ordinary conversation felt like thunder inside his skull. The ticking of a clock became torture. A flickering light felt like a storm. His classmates thought he was simply strange. His professors thought he was unstable. They didn't know he was drowning inside his own genius. Sometimes Tesla would collapse into bed and stare at the ceiling for hours, unable to silence the whirlwind of thoughts. At other times, whole days passed in a blur of frantic work. He lived in extremes, either burning with inspiration or sinking into exhaustion so deep he could hardly lift his head. But through it all, his mother's voice stayed with him. Her memory was a quiet force guiding him through the storm. During the nights when he felt he might break, he would close his eyes and remember her hands weaving, creating, inventing. It kept him grounded just enough to continue. His professors were fascinated by him, even when they disagreed with him. Some challenged him more than other students, partly because they saw his potential, partly because they wanted to test the limits of his mind. They gave him complex problems meant to take days, but Tesla solved them in minutes, often mentally without writing anything down. And when he did take notes, his notebooks were filled with lines of perfect handwriting, precise equations, and detailed sketches drawn from memory without correction. One professor once threw a design problem at the class, something nearly impossible, something even seasoned engineers struggled with. Students sighed. Some gave up immediately. Tesla stared at the blackboard, silent. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if watching something the rest couldn't see. He wasn't thinking. He was observing. Inside his mind, gears turned, coils glowed, currents shifted. A few minutes later, he calmly stood up, walked to the board, and wrote a solution so elegant the professor's eyes widened. "Did you memorize this from a book?" the professor demanded. "There is no book," Tesla replied softly. "I saw it." This answer unsettled people. How do you compete with someone who doesn't calculate, but visualizes But his brilliance had a fragile edge. In his second year of school, Tesla pushed himself harder than ever. He studied nearly 20 hours a day. His body began to fail. He grew thin, pale, restless. He suffered from what would later be recognized as a nervous breakdown. His father urged him to stop, but Tesla refused, convinced that slowing down meant losing momentum. Eventually, his body collapsed. Tesla fevered for days, barely conscious. Doctors warned that if he didn't change his lifestyle, he might not recover. He lay in his room, drenched in sweat, barely breathing, haunted by the feeling that his visions were slipping away from him. But then, something remarkable happened. As Tesla later described during his worst moments, weak, half-conscious, hovering between delirium and clarity, new images appeared in his mind. Machinery more advanced than before, electromagnetic fields swirling like living creatures, coils glowing blue and gold, engines spinning without contact, light filling entire cities. His crisis, instead of destroying his mind, expanded it. He survived, but the experience left marks on him, physical, emotional, and psychological. His senses became even sharper. He developed phobias, sensitivities, peculiar habits. He could no longer bear the sight of pearl earrings. He feared certain geometric shapes. He counted his steps obsessively. He avoided touching people. He could hear sounds far beyond normal human range. He could feel storms approaching from miles away. To others, these were oddities. To Tesla, they were simply the consequences of having a mind that never stopped. After recovering, he returned to school with renewed determination. The professors expected him to slow down. Instead, he accelerated. His calculations became even more precise, his inventions more ambitious, his visions more vivid. But the conflict with his professors returned, stronger this time. One day, during a lecture about direct current systems, Tesla argued again that DC was inefficient, limited, and destined to be replaced. His professor, who had built his career on DC principles, felt challenged. "You speak as if you know better than the entire scientific community," the professor snapped. "This alternating current fantasy of yours is nothing but a daydream." Tesla, calm but firm, answered, "It is not a fantasy. I can see it." The room went silent. The professor grew angry. "Then build it," he said. "Show us." Tesla lowered his eyes. He had no workshop, no materials, no funding, only his mind. But that moment, painful as it was, set his destiny in motion. Because Tesla realized then that he would never succeed in a place that mocked his ideas. He needed to go somewhere bigger, brighter, filled with opportunity, somewhere he could build the machines he saw so clearly inside his mind. He needed to go where the future was being built. He needed to go where electricity ruled. He needed to go to America. But before he could take that journey, life would test him again. Financial trouble struck, forcing Tesla to leave school before completing his degree. It was not because he had failed, but because life, as it often did, placed obstacles in front of him. He returned home, heartbroken, yet determined. His father tried to guide him towards safer, more traditional work, but Tesla's dreams were too loud, too alive to ignore. He knew his path wasn't in quiet villages or conventional careers. His destiny lay in machines, electricity, and unexplored forces. It would be a long and painful road to reach that destiny. But every invention starts with a spark, and for Tesla, that spark had already ignited. Soon, he would step into the world as a young engineer. Soon, he would face failures, betrayals, breakthroughs, and miracles. Soon, he would create technologies that seemed impossible. But before all of that, before New York, before Edison, Before the battle of currents, Tesla had to rise from his struggles and take the first steps into adulthood. And that is where the next chapter of this story begins. The decision to leave Europe was not easy for Tesla, but it had become unavoidable. The dreams inside his mind were too large for the small workshops and rigid traditions of the old world. He needed a place where invention was not only welcomed but rewarded. And in the late 19th century, there was only one such place on Earth, America. A restless, booming, unpredictable land, glowing with electric lights and filled with the energy of new inventions. A place where you could arrive with nothing and build everything. Tesla boarded a steamship bound for New York in 1884. He carried a few clothes, some calculations, and a head full of ideas. In his pocket, he had only 4 cents, barely enough to buy a loaf of bread. But he walked with the dignity of someone who believed destiny was waiting for him on the other side of the ocean. During the long journey, he often stood alone at the railings, staring at the waves as if studying the electrical currents hidden beneath the water. Some passengers thought him odd, some thought him brilliant. Most simply left him alone. He didn't mind. He was used to being alone with his thoughts. When the ship finally approached New York Harbor, Tesla's heart tightened. He saw the Statue of Liberty rising out of the mist like a giant metal spirit, welcoming the tired, the ambitious, the hopeful. But for Tesla, it felt like something deeper, a sign, a promise, a beginning. But beginnings are rarely gentle. When he stepped onto the streets of New York, the city overwhelmed him. Horses clattered on cobblestones, streetcars rattled past, vendors shouted, steam rose from factories, electric lamps flickered in storefronts. It was chaos, beautiful, mechanical chaos, exactly the kind of chaos Tesla believed he could help organize, but reality hit quickly. He had no job, no friends, almost no money. For days, he walked the streets searching for work, sleeping wherever he could, sometimes going hungry. He tried manual labor, ditch digging, any job he could find, but he knew he did not cross an ocean to hold a shovel. He had come to work with electricity, to build the machines he had imagined since boyhood. And then fate intervened. Tesla approached the offices of Thomas Edison's company, a place buzzing with young engineers, draftsmen, and electrical workers. Edison was already a legend in America, a man of invention, a symbol of genius, a hero of industry. To Tesla, he was the one person who might help him bring his ideas to life. When Tesla walked through the doors, he carried a letter from a former employer. The letter was short and simple, but it contained a powerful sentence. "I know 2 great men. You are one of them. The other is this young man." The letter amused Edison, who held it up and chuckled. But when he looked at Tesla, tall, thin, serious, with sharp eyes and a foreign accent, he wasn't sure what to make of him. Edison was a practical man, a builder of working machines, not a dreamer of theories. Tesla seemed like the opposite. Yet something about the young immigrant intrigued him, and so Edison offered Tesla a job. It was not glamorous work. Tesla repaired wires, fixed generators, and improved lighting systems in factories. He worked longer hours than anyone else, sometimes from morning until the next dawn. His co-workers grew fond of him, impressed by his discipline and baffled by his strange habits. He spoke softly, moved precisely, and never seemed to tire, except inside, where exhaustion pressed against him like a hidden weight. But even during these long hours, Tesla continued imagining new machines. While repairing Edison's equipment, he saw every flaw, every inefficiency, every limitation of direct current. DC systems consumed huge amounts of copper, overheated easily, and could only transmit power a short distance. Yet Edison was proud of them. He had built his empire on DC. He believed in it the way a king believes in his kingdom. Tesla disagreed. One night, while examining a DC generator, Tesla muttered to himself, "There must be a better way." A co-worker overheard him. "Better than Edison's generators? You must be joking." Tesla shook his head. "I am not joking. I am certain there is another system. One that uses alternating currents." The worker laughed. "Tell that to Edison." But Tesla didn't need to tell him, because Edison had already begun to notice him. Reports came in that Tesla was solving problems others couldn't. He repaired machines in hours that took teams days to fix. He redesigned equipment without being asked. And soon, he was called to meet Edison again. In Edison's office, cluttered with tools and glowing lamps, the two men faced each other, the American master of invention and the European visionary whose ideas glowed brighter than any lamp. Edison pushed his glasses up and said, "My men tell me you're a wizard with dynamos." Tesla replied humbly, "I only try to do good work, sir." Edison leaned back. "Then I have a challenge for you. Improve my generators. Make them more efficient, cleaner, cheaper. If you can do that, I'll pay you $50,000. $50,000. More money than Tesla could imagine. Enough to change his life. Enough to build the machines he dreamed of. Tesla accepted the challenge immediately. And then he worked like a man possessed. Day and night, he redesigned Edison's entire system. He slept on the workshop floor, lived on almost no food, and barely spoke to anyone. Engineers watched him with a mix of awe and fear as he worked through equations faster than they could copy them. Within months, he had completed what Edison thought would take a year, creating a significantly improved DC generator. Tesla presented the finished design to Edison, explaining every adjustment, every efficiency gained, every flaw corrected. Edison examined the plans, nodding with reluctant admiration. "You've done it," he admitted. "This is excellent work." Tesla waited for the reward, but Edison laughed, not kindly, not cruelly, just dismissively. "You don't understand the American sense of humor," he said. "When I promised $50,000, I was joking." Tesla blinked, stunned. "You were joking?" Edison waved his hand. "Come on now. $50,000 for a simple engineering improvement? That's ridiculous. But you'll get a raise. A small raise. A tiny raise. Insulting even." Tesla stood silently, the shock spreading through him like cold water. Months of brutal work, sleepless nights, hunger, and total dedication, all dismissed as a joke. It was one of the deepest betrayals of his life. And it changed everything. Tesla left Edison's company shortly after, heartbroken, but more determined than ever. He realized then that Edison didn't want innovation. He wanted loyalty. He didn't want a new system. He wanted to protect the old one. He didn't want rivals. He wanted soldiers. Tesla refused to be anyone's soldier. But leaving Edison came at a cost. Without money or connections, Tesla's life once again descended into hardship. He ended up digging ditches for a living, covered in dirt, exhausted, barely earning enough to survive. The men who worked beside him didn't know that the tall, quiet immigrant was one of the greatest minds of the century. They just saw another laborer trying to survive. But even in the mud, Tesla's mind burned with ideas, alternating current, rotating magnetic fields, power transmitted across miles, glowing cities lit by invisible waves. He held onto those visions tightly because he knew what Edison didn't. A war was coming. Not a war of soldiers, but of ideas. A war of currents. A war that would shape the future of electricity. Tesla saw it clearly. Edison saw it too. though he didn't yet know the name of the man he would fight against. This war would divide America. It would divide the scientific community. It would divide the world, and it would push both men to the very edges of genius, ambition, and madness. The war of currents had begun, and Tesla was finally stepping into the destiny he had envisioned since he was a boy, staring at lightning in the sky. The young inventor who had arrived in New York with only 4 cents now found himself at the brink of a revolution, though he did not yet fully understand the magnitude of what he was about to unleash. Tesla's break with Edison, painful as it had been, opened the door to new alliances, new opportunities, and ultimately, the validation of a vision he had nurtured for decades in solitude. It was a vision that promised to light the world, to deliver energy to the furthest corners of the earth, and to make direct current, for all its familiarity, a relic of the past. Among the first to recognize Tesla's brilliance after his departure from Edison's company was George Westinghouse, an industrialist with a keen eye for innovation. Westinghouse had already made a name for himself by producing safer and more efficient railway air brakes, and he understood the potential of alternating current in ways that few others did. When Tesla presented his designs for AC motors and systems, Westinghouse saw immediately that this was more than a simple improvement over DC. It was a paradigm shift. It promised efficiency, scalability, and the ability to transmit electricity over vast distances without the prohibitive loss that had hampered Edison's system. Westinghouse moved quickly. He hired Tesla, giving him a laboratory and the resources to refine his ideas. Tesla, who had often worked in near starvation and isolation, now had the tools and the support to bring his dreams into reality. In those early months, he poured himself into his work with the same single-minded intensity that had defined his youth. Every detail mattered. Every calculation was scrutinized. Every experiment was meticulously observed. Tesla's AC system was not just an invention. It was the crystallization of years of thought, vision, and determination. It was during this period that Tesla began the design of the Niagara Falls Power Project, one of the most ambitious undertakings of the age. The idea of harnessing the immense energy of the falls, converting it to alternating current, and transmitting it to distant cities was a dream that bordered on audacity. Many engineers and industrialists scoffed at the notion. They doubted that AC could be transmitted efficiently over the distances required, and they feared the dangers inherent in the high voltages Tesla proposed. Yet for Tesla, skepticism only fueled his determination. The roar of the falls reminded him of the lightning that had first inspired his fascination as a child. He envisioned his system turning the raw, chaotic power of nature into a controllable force for human progress. As the Niagara project took shape, Tesla's genius became increasingly recognized on the world stage. Scientific journals published his papers. Lecturers sought his insights. Investors began to understand that AC was not a mere curiosity, but the future of energy. Tesla's designs, his patents, and his insistence on rigorous testing set him apart from almost every contemporary engineer. For the first time, the world began to see the true scale of his mind, a mind capable not only of imagining impossible machines, but of bringing them to practical fruition. Of course, not everyone was thrilled. Edison, whose empire had been built on DC, saw Tesla's success as a direct threat. The rivalry that had begun in New York now erupted into a public spectacle known as the War of Currents. Edison launched a campaign to discredit alternating current. framing it as dangerous, unstable, and even lethal. Newspapers carried stories of AC experiments gone wrong, often using sensationalized images of animals being electrocuted to demonstrate its supposed hazards. Edison went so far as to participate in public demonstrations of AC's supposed lethality, attempting to brand it as a menace to the very public it promised to serve. Tesla, however, remained focused on the work itself. He did not respond to every attack or every public insult. Instead, he let his designs, calculations, and eventual demonstrations speak for themselves. And when the Niagara Falls project came online, supplying power to Buffalo and nearby cities, it did more than light lamps. It illuminated the future. Tesla's AC system proved its reliability, efficiency, and safety, rendering Edison's attacks largely irrelevant in the eyes of the public and industry leaders alike. The victory of AC was not merely technological, it was symbolic. It represented the triumph of vision over convention, of intellect over stubborn pride, and of the audacity of one man who refused to accept limits imposed by tradition or fear. For Tesla, the success of the Niagara Falls project was deeply personal. It validated years of struggle, sacrifice, and near destitution. It confirmed that his obsessive work, his sleepless nights, and even his bouts of isolation had not been in vain. The world was finally catching up to the scope of his imagination. Even so, Tesla's life was far from easy. The fame brought by AC did not protect him from financial challenges, nor did it shield him from the social and personal eccentricities that had long marked his life. He continued to live frugally, often in modest hotels, and poured nearly every dollar he earned back into research. He became known for his peculiar habits, his love of pigeons, his strict routines, his fastidious cleanliness, but also for his unwavering dedication to ideas that many others could not yet comprehend. Despite this, his accomplishments during this period were extraordinary. AC systems began to spread across the United States and Europe. Industries, municipalities, and inventors alike began adopting Tesla's designs, acknowledging the superiority of alternating current over direct current. And while Edison continued to attack and disparage him, Tesla's reputation as a true innovator was cemented in the minds of engineers, scientists, and even the general public. Through it all, Tesla remained guided by a deeper vision. He did not see AC merely as a way to light homes or power factories. He envisioned a future in which electricity could be harnessed for the betterment of humanity, delivered widely, efficiently, and, most importantly, without being hoarded by a select few. It was this idealism, combined with his technical genius, that distinguished him from other inventors of the era. For Tesla, the AC victory was just one step in a lifelong quest to unlock the full potential of energy and, ultimately, the universe itself. By the end of this period, Nikola Tesla had become more than an inventor. He had become a symbol of what unrelenting vision, intelligence, and determination could achieve. Though he faced powerful adversaries, financial uncertainty, and the skepticism of even the brightest minds, he proved that ideas, when nurtured with care and courage, could reshape the world. The rise of alternating current was not only a triumph of engineering, but also a testament to the boundless possibilities of human imagination. And yet, for Tesla, this was merely the beginning. While the world celebrated AC power, his mind was already racing ahead to wireless transmission, to global communication, to energy sources beyond the grid, to machines that seemed as if they had leapt from the pages of science fiction. The foundations of the 20th century's electrical age were now in place, but Tesla's journey toward the most ambitious visions of his life had only just begun. In the glare of Edison's public attacks, in the roar of Niagara Falls, in the quiet hum of his laboratory, Tesla found both purpose and promise. The world was finally beginning to listen, yet few would ever truly understand the depths of his genius. It was a genius that, even in the face of opposition and ridicule, refused to compromise. A genius that would continue to illuminate the earth, literally and metaphorically, for decades to come. The hum of progress had only just begun to settle when Tesla's thoughts leapt far beyond the transmission of electricity. While the world marveled at the glowing lights of cities powered by alternating current, Tesla's imagination reached higher, farther, and deeper. He envisioned a future where energy and information would flow invisibly through the air, binding the world together in ways previously unimaginable. This was the dawn of the wireless age, and Tesla was determined to lead it. It all began with the Tesla coil, a device that, in its elegant complexity, seemed almost magical. The coil was more than just a transformer. It was a gateway, a way to generate and control electrical currents at unprecedented voltages and frequencies. In Tesla's lab, arcs of electricity leaped from the coils like lightning captured in miniature, illuminating the walls and ceilings in blinding brilliance. Visitors often described the sight as otherworldly, as if Tesla had summoned the power of storms into a small room. Yet for him, the coils were not mere spectacle. They were the foundation for something far greater, a system that could transmit energy and eventually information across the globe without wires. Tesla's vision of global communication was bold, almost audacious. He imagined a world where a person could pick up a receiver and speak to anyone else, anywhere, at any time. Music, news, even images could travel invisibly, unhindered by the limitations of wires, poles, or terrain. In his mind, the entire planet could be connected in an instant, each person linked by an invisible web of electrical energy. It was a dream that would not only revolutionize industry, but transform society itself. To bring this dream to life, Tesla began a series of experiments that would push the boundaries of contemporary science. In his New York laboratory, he transmitted signals over short distances, proving that communication without wires was not just theoretical, but practical. His experiments were meticulous and often dangerous. The high voltages involved were enough to cause serious injury. Yet Tesla continued, driven by an almost obsessive determination. Each spark, each pulse of energy brought him closer to realizing the vision that had haunted his imagination since childhood. But as Tesla pursued his wireless experiments, competition loomed. Guglielmo Marconi, an ambitious Italian inventor, was racing toward the same goal of wireless telegraphy. Unlike Tesla, who pursued his work with almost religious devotion to perfection, Marconi was pragmatic, quick to patent and commercialize his discoveries. The stage was set for a rivalry that would shape the future of communication. Tesla's early experiments had demonstrated the potential of transmitting signals across miles, but he knew that true global communication required a system capable of sending messages across oceans. He envisioned enormous towers, each powered by Tesla coils, capable of sending and receiving signals anywhere on Earth. The most ambitious of these would become the Wardenclyffe Tower project, a monumental structure that would embody Tesla's vision of a connected world. Investors were intrigued, particularly when Tesla described the potential not only for communication, but for the wireless transmission of energy. The promise of free, ubiquitous electricity captured imaginations, but it also provoked skepticism and fear. Despite the challenges, Tesla pressed on. In workshops, laboratories, and makeshift testing fields, he refined his methods, experimenting with frequencies, wave propagation, and resonance. He discovered principles that would later underpin modern radio, television, and even radar. But at the time, many contemporaries struggled to grasp the significance of his work. The flashes of lightning from his coils, the eerie hums of his oscillators, and the sparks that danced across empty rooms, all these were glimpses of a future that few could yet imagine. Marconi, meanwhile, was not idle. He had begun sending wireless signals across the Atlantic, claiming success in a race that Tesla felt he had long been leading. The news ignited a firestorm of controversy. Tesla protested, asserting that Marconi's achievements relied heavily on his own patents and discoveries, but legal battles and public opinion were slow to recognize the nuances of invention. The rivalry between the two men was as much about recognition and prestige as it was about technological progress. Tesla, ever the perfectionist, sought not just to transmit a signal, but to perfect the system for global use. Marconi, ever the opportunist, was content to claim partial success. During this period, Tesla's work was also shaped by his extraordinary intuition and memory. He could visualize entire machines, circuits, and systems in his mind, testing and modifying them without drawing a single line. This mental prowess allowed him to foresee problems and innovations long before they could be realized physically. When he worked on wireless transmission, he could imagine the behavior of electromagnetic waves, the resonance of circuits, and the interaction of signals across vast distances, all within the confines of his mind. It was a level of abstraction and foresight that few engineers even today can fully comprehend. Yet for all the brilliance, Tesla's genius came at a cost. The pursuit of the wireless dream demanded not only his time and energy, but also his finances and personal stability. The Wardenclyffe Tower, designed to be the centerpiece of global wireless communication, consumed resources at a staggering rate. Investors were hesitant, some skeptical, some simply unwilling to back a project whose immediate commercial returns were uncertain. Tesla poured his own diminishing funds into the project, convinced that once operational, the system would transform the world. The tower itself, rising majestically on Long Island, became a symbol of both hope and controversy. Its skeletal frame loomed over the landscape like a futuristic cathedral, a testament to the audacity of one man's vision. Inside, Tesla continued his experiments, sending high-frequency currents through the structure, lighting lamps without wires, and transmitting signals across increasing distances. It was both a laboratory and a statement. The future was coming, and it would be wireless. Despite his progress, setbacks were constant. Technical challenges, funding shortages, and the ever-present skepticism of the public and press tested Tesla's resolve. Yet even in the face of these obstacles, he never wavered in his belief that a wireless future was inevitable. For Tesla, the wireless age was not merely a technological milestone. It was a philosophical statement about the possibilities of human ingenuity, the liberation of energy, and the interconnectedness of the world. As Marconi received accolades for transatlantic wireless signals, Tesla's frustrations grew. He knew that his work had laid the foundation, that the principles he had discovered were crucial to the success that Marconi celebrated. But recognition was elusive, and the race for patents and credit continued. Legal battles would drag on for decades, with courts eventually acknowledging Tesla's prior work. Yet in the moment, the rivalry was sharp, public, and at times bitter, highlighting the intersection of genius, ambition, and commerce in the early 20th century. Throughout this time, Tesla remained a figure apart. While the world debated his achievements, he focused on the vision itself. The Wardenclyffe Tower, the coils, the experiments, they were all extensions of his imagination, manifestations of a dream that transcended money, fame, or recognition. Tesla believed deeply in the potential of science to improve the human condition, to create a world where knowledge and energy were shared freely, and to connect humanity in ways that were once thought impossible. By the end of this period, Tesla had established himself not only as a pioneer of alternating current, but as the father of the wireless age. His experiments, innovations, and relentless pursuit of perfection had laid the groundwork for radio, long-distance communication, and even the modern concepts of global energy distribution. And yet, even as his fame grew, the world had only glimpsed the tip of his ambition. The wireless dream, with all its promise and peril, was only just beginning to unfold. Tesla's story during these years is a testament to the power of vision, persistence, and imagination. He showed that true innovation often comes not from following the path of least resistance, but from pushing against the boundaries of what is considered possible. While rivals raced, investors hesitated, and the public debated, Tesla remained focused on the invisible threads of energy and information that, in his mind, could one day unite the world. In retrospect, these years mark a turning point, not just for Tesla, but for the world itself. The seeds of wireless communication, of global connectivity, and of technological audacity were sown in his lab, nurtured by his genius and his relentless dedication. And although he faced opposition, misunderstanding, and financial strain, Tesla's unwavering belief in the wireless future would inspire generations of inventors, engineers, and dreamers for decades to come. The wireless age had begun, and Nikola Tesla stood at its forefront, a solitary visionary whose mind reached far beyond the horizon, seeing a future that the rest of the world had yet to imagine. The crackling arcs of his coils, the hum of resonant frequencies, and the towering frame of Wardenclyffe were not just machines. They were the first signs of a new era, an era that Tesla had imagined long before anyone else could see it, and one whose echoes would reverberate throughout the century. While the world marveled at the idea of transmitting messages and electricity without wires, Tesla's imagination surged forward into realms that seemed almost fantastical. For him, the wireless age was only the beginning. The true measure of his genius lay not merely in connecting the world, but in imagining technologies that would blur the boundary between science and magic, mechanics and life itself. Tesla's fascination with robotics began quietly, long before the term itself had entered the public lexicon. He foresaw a future where machines could act autonomously, performing tasks that once required human labor. At the turn of the century, he demonstrated a small radio-controlled boat, astonishing onlookers in Madison Square Garden. The crowd watched in awe as the miniature vessel responded to commands transmitted invisibly through the air. Some whispered, that it was sorcery. Tesla merely smiled, insisting it was science, the kind that only needed vision and courage. This early foray into remote control foreshadowed a world where machines would become extensions of human will, a prophecy decades ahead of its time. Yet robotics was just one strand of Tesla's visionary tapestry. His thoughts often returned to the idea of wireless power, an ambition that consumed his waking hours. He imagined vast towers capable of transmitting energy over great distances, lighting cities, factories, and homes without a single wire. For Tesla, electricity was not a commodity, but a force of nature, meant to be harnessed and shared freely. In his notebooks, he meticulously calculated resonant frequencies, voltage potentials, and energy propagation across the globe. Every formula, every sketch, was a step toward a dream that would challenge the very notion of energy itself. In the midst of these experiments, Tesla became fascinated with the Earth itself. He believed that the planet could act as a conductor, capable of storing and transmitting immense energy. His work on Earth resonance aimed to tap into the natural vibrations of the planet, turning it into a source of limitless power. He theorized that by sending electrical impulses through the ground at precise frequencies, entire cities could be illuminated without the need for wires, transformers, or power plants. To most contemporaries, this idea was absurd. To Tesla, it was the next logical step in humanity's mastery over nature. One of the more dramatic and controversial episodes in Tesla's experiments was what he would later call his earthquake machine. Using a small oscillator, Tesla attempted to create mechanical resonance that matched the natural frequency of structures. He demonstrated this device in his Manhattan laboratory, and according to reports, it caused the entire building to vibrate violently. Workers fled in panic, convinced that a major catastrophe was underway. Tesla, ever precise and controlled, dismantled the device before true destruction could occur, but the incident became the stuff of legend. He had glimpsed the immense power that resonant frequencies could unleash, both as a tool of construction and as a potential weapon. Tesla's innovations extended beyond the ground beneath our feet to the skies above. His experiments with artificial lightning were nothing short of spectacular. In his laboratory, he created bolts of electricity that arced tens of feet, illuminating rooms and lighting gas lamps without direct connections. Observers described the spectacle as both beautiful and terrifying, a miniature storm conjured at will. Tesla's work with high-voltage currents revealed principles that would later inform modern electrical engineering, particle physics, and even entertainment technology. It was as if he held in his hands the raw power of nature, shaping it with intellect and imagination into forms the world had never seen. The genius of Tesla lay not just in creating devices, but in seeing their potential to reshape society. His inventions were often accompanied by grand visions of their applications. The wireless transmission of power, he believed, could liberate humanity from the constraints of fuel and infrastructure. Remote-controlled devices could act as tools for safety, exploration, and efficiency. Artificial lightning could provide illumination, energy, and insight into the behavior of nature itself. Robotics could extend human capability, freeing people from the drudgery of labor. In Tesla's mind, technology was a means to expand human freedom, knowledge, and creativity. Tesla's notebooks from this period are filled with sketches and calculations that seem to leap ahead of even today's standards. There are drawings of vehicles that could operate without internal combustion, machines that could manipulate gravitational forces, and devices capable of transmitting thoughts or images across vast distances. Many of these ideas were never realized in his lifetime, not because they were impossible, but because the technology of the era was insufficient. Tesla's mind moved faster than industry, faster than society, and even faster than his investors' willingness to fund the impossible. It was during these years that Tesla's work began to blur the line between science and prophecy. He spoke openly about harnessing energy from the very atmosphere, of sending messages around the globe instantly, and of machines that could operate independently of human guidance. Some contemporaries dismissed him as eccentric or mad, yet those who observed his experiments closely could see the seeds of the technologies that would define the 20th and 21st centuries. His early work with oscillators, coils, and resonance circuits laid the groundwork for radio, radar, remote control, and even modern robotics. Tesla's relentless pursuit of the visionary often came at a personal cost. Hours, days, and nights were consumed entirely by thought and experimentation. Meals were skipped, social interactions neglected, and even sleep became secondary to the demands of invention. He lived largely in the realm of imagination, a mind constantly churning with possibilities, each more extraordinary than the last. Friends and acquaintances often marveled at his ability to visualize complex systems in their entirety, tweaking and perfecting them without a single physical prototype. Among his peers, Tesla's brilliance was both respected and feared. While others worked methodically, step by step, he would conceive entire systems in his mind, understanding their every component and interaction. When he built, it was as though the machine had always existed in some hidden form, and he merely unveiled it for the world to see. This method, while immensely effective, also created tension with investors and the collaborators. Few could match his speed of thought or the scope of his vision, and many were left scrambling to keep up. Tesla's obsession with perfection also meant that many of his inventions never reached commercial viability. Devices were often too advanced, too costly, or too ahead of their time to find immediate practical application. Yet these failures were rarely true failures in Tesla's mind. They were experiments, stepping stones toward a future only he could envision. Every spark of the coil, every pulse of resonance, every arc of artificial lightning was a lesson, a data point, a proof that the impossible could, one day, become reality. The era of Tesla's greatest inventions was also a time of isolation. As he delved deeper into the frontiers of science, social connections waned. He found solace not in the company of people, but in the company of his machines, his pigeons, and his thoughts. Each invention was a conversation with the universe, a dialogue conducted in sparks, currents, and vibrations. Yet despite the solitude, Tesla remained a teacher at heart. He shared his insights with anyone willing to listen, often demonstrating complex principles with dramatic flair that captivated audiences and inspired countless future scientists. As he refined his ideas, Tesla also contemplated the ethical implications of his work. The Earth resonance experiments, the earthquake machine, and the potential for artificial lightning were not merely technological curiosities. They had the power to reshape society, for better or worse. Tesla often mused that the ultimate purpose of invention should be the betterment of humanity, not the pursuit of profit or power. This moral compass guided his work even when the world seemed indifferent or hostile. His visions were not limited to energy and mechanics. Tesla imagined a world where machines could sense, respond, and adapt. He foresaw automated factories, intelligent vehicles, and communication networks that would link people across continents. In many ways, he was predicting technologies that would only materialize decades later. Drones, smart grids, artificial intelligence, and the internet. To Tesla, these were not fantasies. They were inevitable extensions of the principles he was discovering in his laboratory every day. Throughout this period, Tesla's life became a delicate balance between genius and obsession, creation and exhaustion. He lived in a world of ideas so vast that the physical constraints of money, materials, and time often felt like cruel limitations. Yet these constraints did little to dampen his spirit. For Tesla, the act of inventing was itself a form of communion with the universe, a dialogue with forces unseen, a negotiation with energy and matter that few others could even perceive. By the close of this visionary era, Tesla had established himself as more than an inventor. He was a prophet of technological possibility. His experiments in wireless power, robotics, resonance, and artificial lightning would lay the foundation for future generations, even if they were incompletely realized in his lifetime. And though many contemporaries misunderstood or dismissed him, history would eventually recognize the scale and ambition of his vision. Tesla's life during these years was a testament to the power of imagination married to intellect. He showed that one mind, unbound by convention and unafraid of failure, could envision possibilities far beyond the horizon of ordinary thought. The inventions of this period, from the radio-controlled boat to the earthquake machine, from wireless transmission to artificial lightning, were not mere curiosities. They were glimpses of a future that humanity would eventually inhabit, guided in part by the genius of a man who dreamed far ahead of his time. In the end, the greatest legacy of this era was not just the machines or the patents, but the example Tesla set, that the pursuit of knowledge and the courage to imagine boldly can transcend obstacles, skepticism, and even the limitations of one lifetime. His visionary era reminds us that innovation is not a linear path, but a tapestry of dreams, experiments, failures, and triumphs, a tapestry woven by those willing to see what others cannot and to act on it with a relentless determination. And so, as the hum of his coils faded into the ether, as arcs of electricity danced their final arcs, and as the visions of wireless power and automated machines took shape in the minds of the next generation, Nikola Tesla stood as a singular figure at the intersection of science and imagination, a man whose inventions were only the beginning, whose dreams reached across time, and whose legacy would continue to electrify the world long after the lights he lit had grown dim. By the early 1900s, Tesla had already proven himself a visionary of unparalleled brilliance. His experiments with wireless power and his uncanny foresight into technologies that would shape the future had earned him fame, but not fortune. The next chapter of his life would intertwine genius with hubris, ambition with heartbreak, and the promise of a world-changing invention with the cruel realities of business and human greed. Tesla's dream was audacious, a global wireless power system capable of transmitting energy across vast distances without the need for wires. He envisioned towers that would draw electricity from the earth itself and beam it to any location on the planet, lighting cities, powering factories, and even providing free energy to homes. To Tesla, this was not just an invention. It was a gift to humanity, a technological leap that could liberate the world from the tyranny of fuel, wires, and monopolized electricity. To realize this vision, Tesla needed funding. He turned to one of the wealthiest men in America, the legendary financier J.P. Morgan. Morgan had already been involved in the electrification of the country and was well acquainted with the potential of Tesla's genius. Tesla, ever the showman and master of persuasion, painted a picture of the tower as a marvel that would not only revolutionize communication, but also generate untold profits for its investors. For Morgan, the idea of wireless communication was enticing. The notion of free energy, however, remained a distant dream, though Tesla emphasized the potential of limited commercial applications as a way to monetize the system. With Morgan's support, Tesla embarked on constructing the Wardenclyffe Tower, a colossal structure on the sandy shores of Long Island. Rising over 187 feet, capped with a giant spherical dome, the tower was designed to harness the Earth's natural resonance and transmit power through the atmosphere. It was an engineering marvel, the likes of which the world had never seen. Onlookers described arcs of lightning leaping from the top of the tower during testing, a spectacle that was both beautiful and terrifying. To Tesla, each flash was proof that the dream was within reach. But as construction progressed, the scale of the project grew far beyond initial estimates. Tesla, driven by boundless ambition, decided not merely to demonstrate wireless communication or small-scale power transmission. He wanted to supply energy to the entire state. This expansion dramatically increased cost, straining both his finances and Morgan's patience. The project, originally conceived as a technological marvel with commercial promise, had become a monumental financial gamble. Morgan, ever pragmatic, began to grow uneasy. Tesla's projections of free energy, while visionary, threatened to disrupt the very market in which Morgan had invested heavily. The prospect of an invention that could deliver electricity without cost was antithetical to the existing electrical business, in which Morgan and other financiers had significant stakes. While Tesla saw the project as a humanitarian endeavor, Morgan saw it as a potential threat to his empire. By 1905, the tension reached its peak. Tesla, unwilling to compromise his vision, continued scaling up the tower and funding the work with his dwindling personal resources. Morgan, alarmed by the mounting expenses and the lack of immediate commercial returns, withdrew his support. The decision was a devastating blow to Tesla. Without Morgan's backing, the ambitious project could not continue, and construction at Wardenclyffe Tower ground to a halt. The collapse of Wardenclyffe Tower marked the beginning of Tesla's financial ruin. The inventor, whose mind had envisioned a world powered freely and wirelessly, was left bankrupt, his personal fortune depleted, and his reputation as a brilliant but impractical dreamer cemented in the public eye. Yet Tesla refused to abandon his ideals. Despite the loss, he continued to work on smaller projects, filing patents and developing new inventions, each a testament to his relentless drive and unquenchable curiosity. The story of Wardenclyffe Tower is more than a tale of financial misfortune. It is a story of vision clashing with reality. Tesla's genius had always moved faster than the world around him. Investors, constrained by immediate profit motives, often failed to grasp the long-term potential of his work. Wardenclyffe was the ultimate example. A technology that could have transformed the world, halted by the short-sightedness of those who controlled capital. Even after the collapse, Tesla remained undeterred in spirit, though not in hardship. He moved from hotel to hotel, using rooms as laboratories, and continued inventing despite scarce resources. He experimented with smaller devices, wireless transmission systems, and other visionary ideas, each carrying the spark of the ambitions that had once fueled Wardenclyffe Tower. To outsiders, Tesla appeared eccentric, even mad, yet those who knew him understood that every setback only intensified his determination. The tower itself, abandoned and incomplete, became a symbol of unfulfilled potential. It stood on Long Island as a monument to ambition, genius, and human limitation. Historians would later describe Wardenclyffe as both a triumph of engineering and a cautionary tale of hubris, an invention decades ahead of its time, constrained by the very economic and political realities that it sought to transcend. Tesla's financial destruction was profound. He had invested not only his money, but his reputation and years of relentless labor. Yet even in poverty, he maintained an unshakable faith in the future. He continued to correspond with financiers, investors, and scientists, pitching ideas that range from practical to visionary. Letters from this period reveal a man still dreaming on a scale that defied conventional understanding, a man whose imagination remained boundless, even as the material world closed in on him. Wardenclyffe Tower, in many ways, was the defining failure of Tesla's life, but it also encapsulated his genius. It demonstrated what one visionary mind could conceive and attempt to realize, even against the overwhelming odds of finance, politics, and social skepticism. While Morgan saw the project as a risky investment, Tesla saw it as a foundation for a future in which energy, communication, and human potential were no longer constrained by wires or limited resources. In the aftermath, Tesla's personal and professional life became a delicate balancing act between survival and ambition. He relied on the occasional support of philanthropists, friends, and admirers, but nothing could fully replace the promise and potential that Wardenclyffe represented. Yet, even as the tower crumbled, the principles Tesla had uncovered, the resonance of the earth, the transmission of energy, and the wireless control of devices, remained seeds for future innovation, quietly influencing technology long after the physical structure had faded. Despite the collapse, Tesla's spirit remained unbroken. In his mind, the dream of global wireless power was never lost. It was postponed, waiting for the world to catch up. Wardenclyffe Tower, though a financial disaster, became a symbol of unyielding ambition, a reminder that genius is often misunderstood and underfunded in its own time. Tesla's refusal to compromise his vision, even in the face of financial ruin, stands as a testament to the power of human imagination and the courage to pursue ideas that the world may not yet be ready to accept. Through the wreckage of Wardenclyffe, Tesla emerged as both a cautionary figure and an enduring inspiration. He had dared to dream bigger than the world around him could comprehend, and in doing so, he illuminated a path for future inventors, scientists, and dreamers. The lessons of Wardenclyffe Tower are clear. Vision without compromise is costly, but it is also the essence of true innovation. Even as he faced poverty, social isolation, and the skepticism of contemporaries, Tesla's mind continued to wander into realms of possibility. The collapse of Wardenclyffe was not the end of his work, but rather a chapter in a lifetime defined by relentless pursuit of ideas that challenge the limits of human understanding. In the shadow of that unfinished tower, Tesla's legacy of ingenuity, resilience, and visionary thinking would continue to shape the world long before society fully recognized the depth of his brilliance. After the collapse of Wardenclyffe Tower, Tesla found himself teetering on the edge of financial ruin. Once the darling of the scientific world, now he was a man reduced to moving from hotel to hotel, each room serving as a makeshift laboratory, an office, and, in time, a sanctuary from the harsh judgment of the outside world. Yet even in these confined spaces, Tesla's mind never ceased to dream. While society labeled him eccentric, some might say even mad, his imagination continued to blaze with ideas far beyond his time. Tesla's hotel life became the defining rhythm of his later years. Unlike most hotel guests, he did not come and go with the casual anonymity of a transient traveler. He arrived with his personal effects, boxes of papers, equipment, inventions in various stages of completion, and a strict regimen that governed every minute of his day. Each hotel room doubled as his laboratory, filled with coils, wires, and mechanical curiosities. Tesla was fastidious about cleanliness. The clutter of his inventions never extended to disorder, and his rooms were maintained with the precision of a laboratory. Staff came to know him as a man of peculiar routines, his meals meticulously timed, his walking circuits around the lobby or city streets calculated for exercise, his nightly rituals almost ceremonial. Central to Tesla's hotel life was his obsession with pigeons. In the early days, he'd rescued injured birds, but over the years, this evolved into a full-blown devotion. He would spend hours on end in the company of the birds, feeding them, nursing them back to health, and forming bonds that some considered unusual, even strange. Tesla often referred to certain pigeons as friends, companions, or even muses, and he was particularly attached to one white pigeon, describing it as possessing a purity and intelligence unlike any other. These birds were more than pets. They were a source of comfort, an emotional anchor amidst a world that often misunderstood him. Tesla's eccentricities extended far beyond his devotion to pigeons. He maintained strict habits and compulsions, many of which seemed almost ritualistic. He was obsessed with the number 3, often circling buildings 3 times before entering, and he had an aversion to touching objects he deemed impure or to stepping on cracks in the pavement. Pearls, jewelry, and ostentatious displays of wealth repelled him, which made social gatherings with the elite of New York, an environment he frequented in his earlier years, awkward. Despite these oddities, Tesla maintained a magnetic charm, a presence that drew people to him, if only briefly, before his quirks reminded them that he did not conform to ordinary expectations. Health problems began to shadow Tesla in his later years. He suffered from chronic ailments, including digestive issues, insomnia, and intense fatigue, often brought on by long hours spent on experiments and the mental strain of his visionary projects. Despite these afflictions, he rarely allowed them to interrupt his work entirely. His dedication to invention, theory, and experimentation remained unyielding. He continued to file patents, correspond with scientists, and refine ideas even as his body grew frail. Some who observed him during this period remarked on the stark contrast between his brilliant intellect and his weakened physical state. A man whose mind could conjure the impossible, even as his body succumbed to the limitations of age. Social isolation became Tesla's norm. Friends from earlier years had passed away, moved on, or been estranged by the relentless eccentricities that had grown over time. He rarely attended public events, preferring solitude or the company of pigeons. Even when approached by journalists or admirers, Tesla was selective. He spoke cautiously, often cryptically, choosing to protect the sanctity of his ideas while sharing just enough to maintain his presence in the scientific discourse. This isolation, however, did not dampen his spirit entirely. In private, he remained remarkably lively, engaging in complex thought experiments and continuing to envision inventions that would, in many cases, not be realized until decades later. Tesla's interactions with society in these years were marked by contradictions. On one hand, he was revered as a genius, a living symbol of human ingenuity. On the other, he was often dismissed as a relic of a bygone era, a dreamer whose ideas were impractical or irrelevant. Yet Tesla seemed largely indifferent to public opinion. Money, fame, and social status mattered little to him compared to the pursuit of knowledge and the realization of his visions. Letters and personal notes reveal a man who deeply contemplated humanity, the universe, and the ethical implications of his work, far more than he worried about public perception. Even within this seclusion, Tesla retained small acts of generosity and connection. He continued to mentor young engineers or correspond with fellow scientists who sought his guidance. In his hotel rooms, he experimented with ideas that ranged from the practical refinements in alternating current systems to the fantastical concepts for wireless energy transmission, weather control, and remote-operated devices. While these experiments were often limited by resources, Tesla never allowed himself to stop thinking, imagining, or theorizing. His mind remained a factory of invention, churning out visions for a future that only he could fully see. Tesla's peculiar habits and eccentricities were not merely superficial quirks, they were reflections of a mind operating on a level few could comprehend. His obsessive attention to detail, meticulous routines, and unconventional lifestyle were intertwined with his intellectual pursuits. The obsessive nature that once fueled his extraordinary inventions now framed the rhythm of his daily life. To outsiders, these behaviors were bizarre, but to Tesla, they were essential instruments of focus and control in a chaotic world that often failed to understand him. As the years progressed, his fame slowly faded from public memory. New technologies emerged, and younger inventors captured the spotlight. Yet, Tesla's foundational contributions to electricity, wireless communication, and mechanical innovation remain deeply embedded in the fabric of modern life. Despite his obscurity, he remained a visionary, tirelessly working in relative anonymity. Even as his health declined, he remained intellectually vigorous, a testament to the resilience of the human mind. The image of Tesla in his later years is striking. A thin, grey-haired figure moving quietly through hotel corridors, accompanied by pigeons, surrounded by papers and inventions, speaking softly to those who approached with genuine curiosity. He was a man both deeply human and profoundly otherworldly, a genius misunderstood, a visionary isolated, a dreamer confronting the harsh realities of life while continuing to imagine futures beyond imagination. Despite loneliness and declining health, Tesla retained a philosophical outlook. He reflected on the trajectory of humanity, the role of science, and the potential of invention to shape society for the better. His writings and statements from this period reveal a mind attuned not only to technology, but to ethics, the evolution of civilization, and the spiritual dimensions of discovery. In many ways, his final years were a meditation on life itself, an extraordinary intellect grappling with mortality, society, and the eternal quest for knowledge. Tesla's decline, eccentricity, and loneliness were inseparable from the genius that had propelled him through a lifetime of invention. They were the shadows cast by a mind too vast, too imaginative, and too unconstrained to fit neatly into the conventional world. Yet it was in these shadows that the essence of Tesla's character emerged, undaunted, unyielding, and unwavering in the pursuit of ideas that would ultimately transform the world. Through hotel rooms filled with wires, coils, and pigeons, Tesla endured. Through solitude, he maintained a dialogue with the universe, testing, imagining, and perfecting concepts that stretched the limits of contemporary science. Though many saw him as eccentric or reclusive, history would later recognize that these final decades were not a retreat from brilliance, but rather the continuation of a lifelong pursuit of understanding, innovation, and vision that knew no bounds. In the quietude of his later years, Tesla became more than an inventor. He became a symbol of the solitary genius, a man whose life was defined not by wealth, acclaim, or conformity, but by the unrelenting pursuit of knowledge, the audacity of imagination, and the unwavering commitment to dreams that society often could not yet grasp. His peculiar habits, his attachment to pigeons, his meticulous routines, and his isolation were all threads in the tapestry of a mind that had touched the very pulse of the future. Though physically weakened, Tesla's intellect remained luminous. His vision of a world transformed by energy, communication, and technology persisted, echoing through his remaining experiments and writings. While society often misunderstood him, his legacy endured quietly, embedded in the principles of electricity, radio, and countless technologies that would blossom decades after his death. His eccentricity was inseparable from his genius, his loneliness inseparable from his ambition, and his decline inseparable from the vastness of his vision. Even in his final years, Tesla's imagination never dimmed. The quiet hotel rooms of New York became the last laboratories of a man whose dreams had once soared to touch the stars and the earth itself. In solitude, he remained a beacon of intellectual curiosity and creative audacity, a testament to the enduring power of the human mind to dream, innovate, and imagine what others cannot yet see. Tesla's decline and isolation are a poignant reminder that genius often comes at a personal cost. But within that cost lies the extraordinary, a lifetime of ideas, inventions, and visions that continue to inspire, challenge, and shape the world long after the solitary inventor himself has vanished. His later years, marked by eccentricity, loneliness, and unwavering dedication, stand as a tribute to the indomitable spirit of human imagination and the enduring legacy of Nikola Tesla, the man who dared to dream beyond the boundaries of his time. Even in the isolation of his hotel rooms, Tesla's mind never stopped reaching outward, seeking solutions to problems far larger than personal survival or financial gain. By the time the world was engulfed in war, First World War I and later World War II, Tesla had become painfully aware of the destructive potential of humanity, and he felt a moral urgency to ensure that science could serve peace rather than annihilation. Yet, paradoxically, it was precisely this drive that brought him into uneasy proximity with governments, entities he both sought to aid and feared might exploit his inventions for catastrophic ends. Tesla had long been fascinated by the idea of a weapon so powerful that it could prevent wars rather than prolong them. He envisioned a death ray a particle beam capable of disintegrating enemy aircraft, ships, or armies from hundreds of miles away. This was not an idle fantasy. Tesla meticulously drafted blueprints, filed patents, and even created working prototypes in his lab. To him, the death ray was not about destruction for its own sake. It was about deterrence, a technological shield that could make war obsolete. But as he soon discovered, governments were far less interested in Tesla's vision for peace than they were in the potential for power, domination, and profit. During World War I, Tesla attempted to submit his inventions to the US military, offering a range of devices he believed could revolutionize defense. He demonstrated ideas for remotely controlled torpedoes, radio-controlled vessels, and weapons that could neutralize enemy fleets before they ever reached American shores. The proposals were comprehensive, backed by detailed plans and even small-scale prototypes. Yet military officials were often skeptical, dismissing him as an eccentric dreamer whose concepts were impractical or too fantastical to be considered seriously. Tesla's frustration grew. The same nation that had celebrated his contributions to electrical power and radio experiments now ignored his most urgent appeals. Despite repeated attempts, Tesla faced systemic neglect. Letters went unanswered, meetings were postponed or cancelled, and his demonstrations were politely overlooked. To outsiders, it seemed absurd that one of history's greatest inventors could be so systematically ignored. But Tesla understood the underlying tension. Governments feared the ethical implications of his work, the potential loss of control, and the unprecedented power his inventions represented. Free wireless energy, a device capable of obliterating an army from hundreds of miles away. These were concepts that could upset not just the balance of war, but the very structure of society and the global economy. Tesla's fear of misuse was not abstract. He had witnessed firsthand how financial interests and political agendas could distort innovation. The collapse of Wardenclyffe Tower had taught him that even visionary ideas could be crushed when confronted with entrenched economic power. Now, the stakes were far higher. If his death ray, or any of his other advanced inventions, fell into the wrong hands, the consequences could be catastrophic. It was a fear he could not ignore, and one that increasingly colored his interactions with governments, scientists, and financiers alike. Despite this, Tesla persisted. He continued to refine his death ray, improve his remote-controlled systems, and conceptualize new defensive technologies. Some prototypes were rudimentary, designed merely to prove a principle, while others were fully operational within the limits of his resources. Yet each submission to the military ended in polite rejection, bureaucratic inertia, or outright dismissal. The very institutions that might have leveraged his inventions to save millions of lives were too cautious or too short-sighted to embrace them. Tesla, in turn, grew increasingly disillusioned with the promises of authority and the ambitions of men in power. Tesla's visions extended beyond weapons. He conceived of systems for wireless transmission of power on a planetary scale, devices that could detect approaching enemy aircraft, and even mechanisms to control the weather to protect entire nations. He foresaw the possibility of instant communication across continents, the potential for earthquake-resistant structures, and the application of resonance and vibration for both defense and civil engineering. Yet each of these ideas, though feasible in principle, was dismissed as fanciful by government officials more interested in conventional warfare strategies than revolutionary technological ethics. The frustration of being ignored did not silence Tesla. Instead, it fueled a sense of caution. He became acutely aware of the potential for his inventions to be twisted into instruments of destruction. While he had always been a visionary, he now approached disclosure with a careful strategy. He would share his ideas with enough credibility to maintain legitimacy, yet withhold crucial details to prevent misuse. He had learned from experience that the world was not ready for the full measure of his genius, and he feared the consequences if it were unleashed irresponsibly. During the interwar years and the dawn of World War II, Tesla continued to submit proposals and designs, often working alone, tirelessly refining concepts that were decades ahead of their time. He envisioned particle beam weapons that could intercept entire fleets, devices capable of creating controlled electrical storms, and advanced radio systems that could detect movement across oceans. He meticulously documented these ideas in notebooks and correspondences, knowing that even if governments did not act, the ideas themselves were seeds for a future humanity might eventually realize responsibly. But Tesla's warnings were rarely heeded. Officials argued that such devices were too experimental, too theoretical, or too advanced to be of immediate use. Others feared the political implications. A single nation possessing Tesla's death ray could dominate the world, upsetting delicate balances of power. Tesla, ever the idealist, argued not for domination but for a deterrent capable of preventing war. Yet the pragmatism of politics clashed with the ethics of vision, leaving Tesla increasingly isolated in his crusade to protect humanity from itself. Tesla's fear of being used as a tool for destruction was not merely hypothetical. He had observed how inventions intended for human benefit could be appropriated for control and profit. The memory of Edison's commercial maneuvers and the collapse of Wardenclyffe Tower weighed heavily on him. Now, faced with governments and militaries, Tesla recognized that the genius that had illuminated the world could also be exploited to dark ends. He became cautious, secretive, and at times deliberately cryptic in his communications, aware that the misuse of his inventions could have irreversible consequences. Even as the world descended into the horrors of global conflict, Tesla remained a man apart, attempting to wield his intellect for protection rather than destruction. He refined plans for weapons capable of defending nations without loss of life, systems for remote communication to coordinate humanitarian efforts, and devices that could mitigate natural disasters. All of this was done in quiet isolation, often in hotel rooms that now served as laboratories, pigeon sanctuaries, and archives for the remnants of a mind too vast for any one institution to contain. Tesla's struggle with governments highlights a fundamental tension between innovation and authority. A visionary who could see decades into the future was repeatedly constrained by bureaucracies incapable of understanding the moral and technical implications of his inventions. His warnings went largely unheeded, his offers of protection ignored, and his genius left largely untapped in practical terms. Yet despite these obstacles, Tesla never ceased to invent, to dream, or to hope that humanity could one day harness technology responsibly, with ethics as its guiding principle. Even in the twilight of his years, Tesla's mind remained fertile. He continued to experiment with wireless power, resonance, and directed energy, aware that the knowledge he possessed was both extraordinary and dangerous. He meticulously documented his ideas, sometimes intentionally incomplete, to ensure that they could not be misappropriated. His concern was not fame, wealth, or recognition. It was the responsible use of knowledge a moral imperative that few could appreciate. Tesla's interactions with governments were a mixture of hope and disappointment, trust and fear, genius and isolation. They serve as a testament to the challenges faced by innovators whose vision surpasses the comprehension of those in power. Yet, in this struggle, Tesla exemplified the ethical responsibility of the inventor to dream boldly, to innovate relentlessly, and to safeguard the potential of human ingenuity from misuse. His later submissions, while largely ignored, foreshadowed technologies that would emerge decades later, from radar and guided missiles to remote-operated devices and global communication systems. Tesla's ideas were a blueprint for the future, even if contemporary authorities could not see their value. He had glimpsed a world transformed by energy, knowledge, and innovation, yet he also understood the fragility of human ethics in the face of power. Tesla's legacy in these secret projects is as much moral as it is scientific. He demonstrated that genius carries responsibility, that innovation without ethical consideration can be catastrophic, and that the pursuit of knowledge is inseparable from the imperative to use it wisely. His isolation, eccentricity, and repeated dismissal by governments did not diminish the magnitude of his vision. Instead, they underscored the loneliness of the truly extraordinary mind, a mind capable of imagining futures beyond the grasp of politics, war, and commerce. As the world continued its march through war and technological upheaval, Tesla remained a solitary sentinel, inventor and philosopher, dreamer and protector. He understood that knowledge was both power and peril, and he treated it with a care that few others could emulate. Though largely ignored in his lifetime, his contributions planted seeds that would later revolutionize energy, communication, and defense. The inventions that governments feared, misunderstood, or dismissed would eventually become cornerstones of modern science, a testament to the foresight of a man whose mind operated far ahead of his time. Even as he aged, even as health and fortune waned, Tesla's vision never faltered. His death ray, remote-controlled devices, and proposals to the military were more than inventions. They were embodiments of a philosophy that science must serve humanity, not the ambitions of the few. Though ignored, ridiculed, or feared, Tesla persisted, driven by a singular conviction that the future could and should be better, safer, and brighter than the present. Tesla's struggle against governmental indifference and fear of misuse reveals the paradox of the visionary. One who sees possibilities beyond comprehension often finds that the world is not ready. Yet, in his relentless pursuit of ethical innovation, Tesla left a blueprint for the future, one in which technology could protect rather than destroy, illuminate rather than obscure, and elevate humanity rather than subjugate it. His story is not just that of an inventor, but of a moral visionary, a man who dared to dream of a world where genius served peace, even when the powers that be could not or would not understand. The twilight of Tesla's life was marked not by accolades or triumph, but by the quiet weight of solitude. At the Hotel New Yorker, where he had spent the last years of his life, the once vibrant corridors of invention had been replaced by the muted echoes of isolation. No longer did curious crowds flock to witness demonstrations of electrical marvels. No longer did financiers or socialites seek his company. Instead, Tesla lived quietly, attended only by a handful of loyal assistants, his beloved pigeons, and the memories of a life devoted to ideas far ahead of their time. Even in solitude, Tesla's mind remained unceasingly active. He continued to refine concepts, to sketch blueprints for inventions that spanned from the practical to the fantastical. Death rays, wireless power grids, and remote control devices. Yet the world outside paid little heed. His patents, once the foundation of modern electrical systems, had mostly expired, leaving him without substantial royalties. Financially diminished, Tesla relied on the kindness of hotel managers, sympathetic investors, and modest stipends from foreign governments who recognized his genius. But it was far from the life of recognition and comfort he might have deserved. On the morning of January 7, 1943, Tesla's long and extraordinary life came to a quiet end. He passed away in his sleep, alone, at the age of 86. Emaciated, grey-haired, and frail, he left the world not with a grand farewell, but in the gentle silence of a room that had become both his sanctuary and his laboratory. To most, he was simply another aged inventor, yet to those who understood the magnitude of his contributions, a titan of imagination and intellect had vanished. Almost immediately after his death, a new chapter of intrigue began. The United States government, acting through the alien property custodian, moved quickly to seize Tesla's papers and possessions. While Tesla had been an American citizen for decades, and his work was largely conducted on U.S. soil, officials justified the raid as a precautionary measure, claiming that some of his inventions might be of interest to national security. Yet the speed and thoroughness of the operation sparked questions that persist to this day. Agents entered Tesla's hotel room, cataloging and confiscating every notebook, diagram, and piece of correspondence. 2 truckloads of material were removed that day, each item meticulously inventoried, but many would never be returned. The seized files were of extraordinary range. Tesla's meticulous notes spanned decades of research and encompassed both the practical and the theoretical. Proposals for wireless energy systems, plans for advanced communications, calculations for particle beams and resonance-based devices, and musings on the fundamental laws of the universe. Yet for all their brilliance, these documents were treated with suspicion, and the government quickly classified them as potentially sensitive. It was a stark irony. The papers of a man whose life had been devoted to innovation and the betterment of humanity were now locked away under a veil of secrecy. Among the material that disappeared were numerous trunks, reportedly containing the most critical and speculative of Tesla's inventions. While some items were eventually returned to his family, the majority remain unaccounted for. Questions swirled. Had the FBI and military agencies found blueprints for devices that could have transformed energy production or military defense? Were Tesla's death rays and wireless power generators truly realizable? Or were they simply ideas that never left the conceptual stage? The government maintained that the confiscated papers were largely philosophical, promotional, or speculative, denying any possession of practical weaponry or secrets of national defense. Yet the mystery of the missing trunks and the sudden, almost preemptive seizure only fueled public imagination. In the years that followed, the image of Tesla as an eccentric, reclusive genius became intertwined with the aura of secrecy surrounding his final possessions. Conspiracy theories proliferated, ranging from claims that the US had secretly reverse-engineered his death ray to rumors that extraterrestrial communication devices were hidden within his files. Some theorists suggested that his plans for wireless energy had been suppressed deliberately to protect the interests of the electrical and oil industries. Others speculated that Tesla's inventions had been appropriated by both American and foreign militaries, forming the basis for secret projects decades ahead of their time. The FBI, the Navy, and other intelligence agencies declassified portions of Tesla's papers over the following decades, yet significant sections remain classified or unaccounted for. Researchers, historians, and conspiracy theorists alike have scoured the surviving documents, hoping to uncover hints of forgotten technologies or insights into Tesla's visionary mind. These investigations have fueled fascination, not just with Tesla's life, but with the idea that a single individual's intellect could have created tools of unparalleled power, tools that governments and corporations might have sought to control or suppress. The narrative of Tesla's death and the seizure of his papers highlights a recurring tension in the story of innovation, the collision of visionary genius with bureaucratic authority. Tesla had spent a lifetime thinking in decades, seeing solutions and possibilities far beyond the comprehension of his contemporaries. Yet, when he passed, the very institutions that might have amplified his contributions acted instead to contain them, viewing his brilliance through the lens of caution, suspicion, or fear. In the process, Tesla became not just a forgotten genius but a symbol of the struggle between human potential and the constraints imposed by power. For the public, the aura of mystery only enhanced Tesla's legend. Books, articles, and later documentaries painted him as a man ahead of his time, a solitary genius whose ideas were stolen, ignored, or feared. Stories of missing trunks, confiscated files, and secret projects became integral to his mythology, blending the line between fact and speculation. In the minds of many, Tesla's legacy was no longer confined to the realm of science. It became a narrative of secrecy, lost knowledge, and the tantalizing possibility of technologies that might have transformed the world. Yet amidst the conspiracy theories and speculation, one truth remained undeniable. Tesla's mind had been extraordinary. Even in his final years, working alone in the hotel rooms and under the watchful eyes of government agents, he continued to invent, to theorize, and to dream. His death did not mark the end of his influence. On the contrary, it catalyzed a fascination that endures to this day, inspiring generations of engineers, scientists, and dreamers to imagine what might be possible when intellect and imagination are unbound. In retrospect, the seizure of Tesla's papers and the mystery of the missing trunks serve as a stark reminder of both the vulnerability and the power of ideas. One man's vision, however brilliant, is never fully his own. It interacts with society, with politics, with human ambition and fear. Tesla's genius had been too expansive, too revolutionary, to be fully comprehended or controlled, and the reaction of governments, seizing, classifying, and suppressing, reveals how the world often responds to what it cannot yet master. The fascination with Tesla's final days, his dying alone, and the FBI's intervention continues to captivate the imagination. Conspiracy theorists, historians, and the public alike speculate on what might have been. Free wireless energy powering cities across the globe, defenses that could have made war obsolete, and technologies that could have transformed human life. Whether any of these visions were truly achievable, or simply the projections of a mind perpetually ahead of its time, may never be known. But the enduring curiosity surrounding Tesla's death and the confiscation of his work cements his place as a figure larger than life, a man whose inventions, ideas, and even mysteries continue to inspire awe and speculation. Even today, The world grapples with the unanswered questions Tesla left behind. The FBI's files, partially declassified, offer glimpses into a mind of astonishing breadth, while missing trunks hint at secrets that may forever remain beyond reach. Tesla's death did not end the story. It transformed it, casting him as both a tragic figure and a symbol of the endless tension between genius, secrecy, and human ambition. From the hotel room in which he passed to the speculation that surrounds his papers, Tesla's final chapter is as compelling, mysterious, and instructive as any of his inventions, reminding us that the line between reality and legend is often as thin as the spark of a Tesla coil. Through these final events, one truth remains clear. Tesla's legacy transcends the mundane record of patents and experiments. It exists in the imagination, in the what-ifs of technological possibility, and in the enduring belief that one person's vision can challenge the boundaries of human understanding. The death of Nikola Tesla, shrouded in mystery and punctuated by the seizure of his life's work, stands as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the extraordinary potential of human genius. Nikola Tesla's death did not mark the end of his story. On the contrary, it was the beginning of a transformation, from forgotten genius to cultural icon, from obscure inventor to mythic figure. Though he had died alone in a New York hotel, burdened by debts and eccentricities, the magnitude of his contributions gradually became undeniable, and the world slowly began to recognize the depth of his genius. By the time the latter half of the 20th century rolled around, Tesla's work, once dismissed, ignored, or outright ridiculed, began to receive the attention it had long been denied. Scholars, scientists, and engineers revisited his hundreds of patents, uncovering ideas and concepts that were ahead of their time. Over the course of his career, Tesla had filed more than 300 patents across the globe, ranging from the practical to the fantastical. Alternating current systems, high-frequency generators, radio control, induction motors, and early explorations of wireless energy. Many of these patents had been dismissed as impractical or speculative in his day, but with technological advancements, they began to take on new relevance. Engineers discovered that concepts that had seemed fantastical in the early 1900s were now viable with modern materials, computing power, and energy systems. Recognition of Tesla's accomplishments slowly became institutional. In 1975, more than 3 decades after his death, he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame, cementing his status as one of the most influential figures in the history of science and technology. This formal acknowledgement, though long overdue, was only the beginning of a resurgence that would reach far beyond the scientific community. To honor his enduring contributions to physics, the unit of magnetic flux density was named the Tesla T, a permanent mark on the language of science and engineering. Every electromagnet, MRI machine, and particle accelerator that measured magnetic fields bore his name, a quiet yet profound testament to his legacy. Yet Tesla's resurgence was not confined to academia or engineering. Slowly, he entered the broader public imagination, becoming a symbol of visionary genius, eccentric brilliance, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Popular culture embraced Tesla in books, documentaries, films, and television shows. Writers and filmmakers portrayed him as the archetypal lone inventor, a mad scientist whose eccentricities were inseparable from his brilliance. His life story, a rags to riches to rags saga, offered both inspiration and caution, a reminder that human genius often struggles against society, economics, and the limitations of its own era. Modern technology companies, particularly in the fields of energy, transport, and electronics, began reviving his name as a brand and an ideal. The most famous example is the electric car company Tesla, Inc., whose mission to revolutionize transportation with sustainable energy mirrors Nikola Tesla's lifelong dream of a world powered by clean, wireless electricity. The irony is profound. Tesla himself had envisioned global, wireless energy distribution. Yet the modern manifestation of his name relies on battery-stored electricity. Still, the homage is unmistakable, and it demonstrates how his vision continues to inspire entrepreneurs and engineers to push the boundaries of what is possible. Tesla's legacy extends beyond patents and companies. He has become a cultural touchstone for innovation itself, a figure representing curiosity, imagination, and fearless experimentation. In universities, young engineers study his notes not only for technical insight, but also for inspiration. How one mind, unrestrained by convention, can conceive ideas decades ahead of their time. In popular media, he is celebrated as a man out of time, a prophet whose predictions of wireless communication, renewable energy, and advanced robotics foreshadowed the technological landscape of the 21st century. Alongside recognition came myth, the story of Tesla's life, the tower projects, the death rays, the eccentric habits, the pigeons, and the government seizures fueled speculation and conspiracy theories. From claims of suppressed free energy to alleged secret weapons, the mythos of Tesla became inseparable from the facts of his life. While historians separate documented inventions from legend, the public imagination often blends the two, creating a figure larger than life, a symbol of limitless possibility and enduring mystery. Tesla's influence is also evident in the fields of modern physics and electrical engineering. Many contemporary innovations in wireless communication, radio technology, renewable energy, and robotics trace conceptual roots back to his ideas. Researchers have revisited his theories of resonance, wireless transmission, and energy amplification, exploring applications in satellite communications, energy grids, and high-frequency electronics. Even inventions that seemed impossible in his lifetime, like wireless power transfer, are now subjects of serious research, bridging the century-long gap between Tesla's vision and technological reality. The resurgence of Tesla's name has also had a social and philosophical impact. He has become a symbol of the visionary outsider, the individual willing to pursue ideas that society may initially reject or fail to understand. Entrepreneurs, scientists, and creators cite him as an example of how persistence, imagination, and refusal to conform to conventional wisdom can lead to profound impact. His life story teaches that brilliance is often lonely, that genius may go unrecognized in its time, but that the pursuit of truth and innovation is its own enduring reward. In parallel, Tesla's personality, quirks, and eccentricities continue to fascinate. His compulsive habits, fascination with pigeons, fear of germs, and peculiar daily routines are not merely anecdotes. They illustrate the intensity of a mind wholly absorbed in the pursuit of ideas. Psychologists, historians, and biographers have debated whether these traits were the price of genius, or simply facets of an eccentric personality. Regardless, they humanize the legend, reminding us that behind the myths and the patents was a man driven by curiosity, vision, and a deep desire to contribute to humanity. Tesla's story also emphasizes the tension between innovation and society, between ideas and their reception. He was often ahead of his time, and the commercial, financial, and political systems of his era were frequently unprepared to recognize the value of his work. From the collapse of the Wardenclyffe Tower project to the dismissals by financiers and government agencies, Tesla's experiences highlight the challenges inventors face when their visions exceed the boundaries of contemporary understanding. His life serves as a lesson that innovation requires not only intellect and creativity, but also persistence, strategic thinking, and the occasional alignment of timing and opportunity. Today, the name Tesla evokes a spectrum of meanings: scientific excellence, visionary foresight, cultural myth, and technological inspiration. His life has become an allegory for the power of imagination and the enduring impact of intellect. Schools teach his contributions, tech companies adopt his name as a standard of innovation. Engineers and inventors study his patents as a treasure trove of ideas. His story continues to inspire books, films, and documentaries, ensuring that each generation rediscovers the man whose mind seemed to stretch across centuries. In many ways, the resurgence of Tesla's legacy is as remarkable as his inventions. Ideas that once seemed impossible are now embedded in everyday technology. From alternating current powering cities to wireless communication, forming the backbone of global networks, from robotics to electric vehicles, Tesla's influence pervades modern life. Even more significantly, his name serves as a beacon, a symbol of what human ingenuity can achieve when unfettered by convention, fear, or disbelief. The mythology surrounding Tesla, his eccentricities, conspiracies, and the dramatic arc of his life ensures that he remains a compelling figure. But beyond myth, the enduring truth is the extraordinary scope of his intellect and imagination. He was not merely an inventor. He was a visionary who saw connections between ideas that others could not, who imagined futures that others dismissed as impossible, and who pursued those visions with unwavering dedication. Ultimately, Nikola Tesla's legacy is both tangible and intangible. Tangible in the form of patents, units of measurement, and technologies that shape the modern world. Intangible in the inspiration he provides to those who dream beyond the limits of the present. His resurgence in popular culture, technology, and scientific discourse demonstrates that genius cannot be buried, that ideas, even when ignored, misunderstood, or suppressed, can shape generations to come. As the 21st century progresses, Tesla's story continues to resonate. Modern technology companies, from electric vehicles to renewable energy startups, invoke his name not only as a homage, but as a guiding principle, to push boundaries, to innovate relentlessly, and to imagine a future that others may not yet see. In this way, Nikola Tesla's genius transcends time, transforming from the life of a misunderstood inventor into a symbol of limitless human potential. From the silent hotel rooms of New York to the laboratories of modern engineers, from the pages of forgotten patents to the headlines of tech magazines, Tesla's presence endures. His 300-plus patents, once scattered and overlooked, now inspire innovations that reach millions. His induction into the Hall of Fame and the christening of the Tesla unit in physics ensure that his name remains immortal in both scientific and popular consciousness. In every sense, Nikola Tesla's life, work, and myth remind us that genius, no matter how unrecognized in its own time, has the power to echo across the centuries, shaping the world in ways its creator could only dream. In the end, Tesla's resurgence is more than recognition. It is a celebration of vision, imagination, and perseverance. It is the acknowledgement that one man's ideas, however radical or eccentric, can alter the trajectory of human civilization. And in that, Nikola Tesla remains not merely a historical figure, but a guiding star for every mind daring enough to dream beyond the imaginable. As we reach the closing chapter of Nikola Tesla's extraordinary journey, we pause to reflect, not on the man alone, but on the immense genius he carried, the dreams he nurtured, and the world that might have been. Tesla's life was a testament to imagination unbound by convention, a reminder that some minds are so far ahead of their time that society can barely grasp their vision. He dreamed of a world transformed by knowledge, electricity, and innovation, a world powered by free, wireless energy that would make conflict, scarcity, and inequality less inevitable. Yet Tesla's vision remained largely unfulfilled. The technology existed in nascent forms, trapped in the limits of his era, obstructed by financiers who saw profit over progress, and ignored by governments unwilling or unable to understand the magnitude of his inventions. Today, when we flick a switch, scroll through the internet, or drive an electric vehicle, we witness glimpses of what Tesla envisioned, but not in its purest form. We have electricity, wireless communication, and modern technology, but his dream of free, ubiquitous energy that could be drawn from the very air around us, is still elusive. What then did humanity lose in not fully embracing Tesla's vision? Perhaps it is not simply technological stagnation, but a lost opportunity for a society defined not by scarcity, control, or monopolized resources, but by abundance, collaboration, and creative freedom. Tesla imagined cities illuminated without wires, machines powered without fuel, and communication instantaneous across the globe. He imagined a world where energy was no longer a commodity to be hoarded, but a shared resource that could elevate humanity collectively. The question lingers. How different might our civilization have been if Tesla's ideas had been fully realized during his lifetime? And yet, there is hope. Tesla's story is not just a tale of missed opportunities, but of seeds planted for the future. The blueprints he left behind, the patents he filed, and the ideas he championed continue to inspire scientists, engineers, and dreamers. From renewable energy researchers exploring wireless power transfer, to innovators experimenting with advanced robotics and AI systems, the echoes of Tesla's mind still resonate. Every innovation that challenges the limits of possibility is, in some way, a continuation of his vision, a tribute to the man who refused to accept the boundaries of the present. There is also a profound lesson in Tesla's relentless pursuit of knowledge. Genius is not only measured by the inventions one creates, but by the courage to imagine, to challenge norms, and to see beyond the horizon of the possible. Tesla lived for ideas, not for wealth or fame. He endured poverty, ridicule, and isolation, yet never relinquished his vision. His life reminds us that true innovation often comes with sacrifice, that progress may be slow, misunderstood, or even resisted, but persistence, curiosity, and imagination can leave an indelible mark on history. As we reflect on Tesla's life, it becomes clear that his legacy is twofold. First, there are the tangible contributions, the patents, the electrical systems, the AC power grids, the early experiments in wireless transmission, and his pioneering work in electromagnetism. Second, there is the intangible, the inspiration, the myth, and the proof that human imagination can reach beyond the imaginable. Tesla taught us that ideas, once conceived, have a life of their own. They transcend time, influence generations, and shape the future, even when their originator is long gone. And yet, questions remain. Throughout his life, Tesla was obsessed with secrecy and the future potential of his inventions. Many of his papers were confiscated by government authorities after his death, and some trunks containing his most ambitious notes and concepts have never been found. Conspiracy theories, speculation, and wonder surround the idea that Tesla left behind secrets that could revolutionize energy, communication, or even defense. Could the man who dreamed of transmitting electricity wirelessly across the globe, who envisioned devices capable of harnessing the planet's resonance, have left a blueprint for technologies that would reshape our civilization today? This is where we leave you, not with certainty, but with curiosity. Tesla's story challenges us to imagine the possibilities that lie just beyond the edge of our knowledge. It reminds us that genius often works quietly, and that ideas may emerge, forgotten or hidden, only to influence the world decades later. His life urges us to think beyond the confines of what we see, what we accept, and what we are told is impossible. It invites us to dream, to innovate, and to imagine a future that, like Tesla himself, is unconstrained by the limitations of the present. So, as we close this exploration of Nikola Tesla, the visionary, the inventor, the eccentric, the prophet of the future, we ask you to consider the ultimate question. Do you think Tesla's secret files still exist? And could they change the world today? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Could the genius of Nikola Tesla still influence the course of human history? Could there be inventions tucked away in dusty trunks or hidden documents waiting to transform the world? Or is his true gift the inspiration he continues to provide? A spark in the minds of dreamers, engineers, and innovators who dare to think beyond the limits. In reflecting on Tesla's life, we are reminded that progress is not linear, and brilliance is not always recognized in its own time. Yet, the vision, imagination, and courage of one man can leave an imprint that echoes through generations. Tesla's story is a testament to the extraordinary potential of the human mind and a call to all who dare to dream. The impossible is only impossible until it is achieved. And so, as the lights of our modern world shine bright with the power of electricity and the hum of innovation, we remember Nikola Tesla, not merely as an inventor of machines, but as a visionary who challenged the boundaries of possibility and whose spirit continues to light the way for the future.